The night I realized my relationship was already over, I was sitting at a wedding, surrounded by laughter, champagne, and music that felt like it belonged to someone else's life. The ballroom glittered with fairy lights, the kind of romantic glow you see in movies. Sarah, my best friend since college, was dancing with her new husband in the center of the floor. Their smiles were so radiant they pulled the whole room into their orbit. Watching them, I felt a bittersweet tug in my chest. Happiness for her, yes, but also an uneasy ache, like I was measuring my own love story against theirs and finding something missing. At our table, a slice of lemon cake sat untouched beside me. I'd saved it for Aaron, my boyfriend of 3 years, who had wandered off more than an hour ago. My phone screen glowed faintly with my last unread text to him. Grab seats at table 7. Saved you cake. No reply. The band shifted into a jazzy tune. That's when I spotted him, Aaron. He wasn't alone. He was with Clara, his ex from college. She'd flown in for the wedding, a fact he'd brushed off casually. Oh yeah, she'll probably be around. We're still cool. Still cool. From across the room, I watched Clara laugh at something Aaron whispered. Her laugh was sharp melodic, the kind of sound that snapped heads around. Aaron's hand rested lightly on the small of her back as he guided her toward the bar. My throat tightened. That gesture, it wasn't friendship. It was intimacy. I wrapped my fingers around my water glass, grounding myself in the cold condensation. A guest at our table leaned over and asked, "Your date off," charming the crowd. I forced a smile. Something like that. The music shifted again. The bride and groom left the dance floor and others filled in. To my horror, Aaron and Clara drifted into the center, almost as if the spotlight itself had chosen them. The way Aaron held her, one hand pressing the small of her back, the other locking her fingers against his chest. It wasn't the loose, playful dance of old friends. No, it was deliberate, possessive. Clara leaned in, cheek against his shoulder, wearing that soft smile I used to think belonged only to me. My stomach coiled. It wasn't jealousy. Jealousy is messy, irrational. This was clarity, a performance unfolding before me, and I was the only one who knew the script had gone terribly wrong. For 3 songs I watched. 3 songs of whispered jokes, playful swats, and Clara's hand lingering too long on Aaron's lapel. I even saw Sarah mid-conversation at her sweetheart table glance their way with a fleeting frown before turning back. Finally I stood. My chair scraped softly against the polished floor. Every sound in the ballroom dulled as I crossed the room heading toward the gilded mirrors outside the ladies' room. And there he was, Aaron. He wasn't waiting for me. He was waiting for himself, adjusting his tie with smug ease, Clara's laughter still echoing faintly behind him. "Aaron," I said, my voice low. He jumped slightly, then smirked. "Olive." "Hey, you finally decided to mingle. Having fun?" "I've been at our table for an hour. I texted you." He held up his phone. "Battery died. Relax. Clara and I were just catching up." Catching up. My tone sharpened, despite my effort to stay calm. "You've been glued to her all night. People are starting to notice." His eyes narrowed, and the sigh that slipped from his lips was pure exasperation. "God. Olive, could you be any more pathetic? It's just dancing. She's an old friend. If you weren't so insecure, you'd see that." The words struck like slaps, not because they were true, but because they were so rehearsed, so easy for him to fling. "It's not about insecurity," I said quietly. My voice surprised even me steady cold. "It's about respect. For me. For Sarah's wedding. This isn't the place." He leaned in his cologne, one I had bought him last Christmas, burning in my nose, suddenly alien. His lips curled with contempt. "Maybe you should try being more fun, more like her." With that, he brushed past me, his shoulder colliding with mine as though I were nothing but an obstacle. He strode straight back toward Clara, who was waiting at the bar. She greeted him with a hand on his arm and a whisper in his ear. Then she looked up, spotted me, watching, and smiled, slow, triumphant. The sound of her laughter cut through the room like glass. And in that instant, something inside me went still. The love wasn't broken, it wasn't dying, it was gone, vanished like it had never existed. All that remained was silence. And in that silence, I made my choice. I was done. The drive home was a blur of gold streetlights and empty thoughts. No music, no tears, no screaming into the steering wheel like I always imagined heartbreak would be. Just silence. It struck me this place no longer felt like ours. It felt like a museum, a neatly preserved exhibit of a relationship already extinct. I toed off my heels, hung my wrap on the hook, and walked through the rooms. Everything looked the same. his jacket draped over the couch, the faint smell of his cologne in the hallway, the bottle of wine we'd planned to open after the wedding. But all of it had transformed. Objects, nothing more. I went to the garage, found a cardboard box, and carried it into the bedroom. His side of the closet gaped open like a wound. Without hesitation, I began folding. Shirts, jackets, the leather belt he wore on our second date. Each item slid into the box with mechanical precision. At one point, I paused, waiting for the ache to hit, but nothing came. Just a steady, eerie calm. By the time dawn's light filtered through the blinds, the box was half full, a silent declaration. When Aaron finally stumbled through the door at nearly 3 p.m., he still wore his suit from the night before, wrinkled and sour with the smell of old alcohol. He dropped his keys with a clatter, expecting me to fuss over him. Instead, he froze. His eyes landed on the box by the closet. "Well, what's this?" His voice was groggy, but underneath it I heard something else, fear. I stood in front of the dresser, calmly folding one of his shirts. "Your things. I've started packing." He blinked, laughed, without humor. "Packing for what?" "You're moving out," I said. "I already called your sister. She'll be here in an hour to help." The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. He stared at me like I'd spoken in another language. Then his face flushed red. "You're seriously throwing me out over what dancing god, Olive? You've lost your mind." I kept folding. "It's not about dancing. It's about the choice you made. You showed me exactly who you are. I believe you." His fists clenched. "You're just insecure, jealous. Do you know how pathetic you sound? Clara means nothing." I turned, finally meeting his eyes. Mine were flat steady. "Then it should be easy for you to leave." That broke something in him. His anger flared. "You can't do this. After 3 years, you're seriously ending us over one night." I placed the shirt neatly in the box. "No, Aaron. I'm ending us because of every night I doubted myself, every time you made me feel like I wasn't enough. Last night just made it undeniable." Before he could fire back, a car pulled into the driveway. His sister, right on time. The doorbell rang sharp in the charged silence. Aaron's shoulders sagged, rage collapsing into disbelief. His sister Melissa stepped inside, her eyes darting from me to the half-filled boxes. She looked at Aaron, then back at me. "What's going on?" she asked cautiously. "She's kicking me out," Aaron snapped, gesturing wildly. "Can you believe this?" Melissa studied me. I didn't flinch. "There are boxes in the bedroom," I said simply. "If you help him, this won't take long." For a moment she hesitated. Then, seeing the resolve in my eyes, she nodded. "Come on, Aaron. Let's get this over with." The next hour passed in a haze of slammed drawers and muttered curses. I stayed mostly silent, sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of water while they packed. Every thump of his shoes into a box was another brick lifted off my chest. Finally, with the last load carried out, Aaron lingered at the door. His face was pale, his voice low. "You'll regret this, Olive." I met his gaze one last time. My voice was calm, almost gentle. "No, I won't." He stared at me for a heartbeat longer, as if waiting for me to crack to beg him to stay. When I didn't, he turned and walked out. The door shut behind him with a soft final click. For the first time in years, the house was quiet. Not empty, not lonely, just quiet. And in that quiet, I breathed freely. The days after Aaron left were strangely calm. I expected tears, a breakdown, maybe even regret. But what came instead was stillness. A quiet routine of waking, making coffee for one, and feeling the space around me expand without his weight pressing in. But word travels fast. 2 days after the wedding, Sarah texted me. "Hey, I heard things got messy at the reception. Just wanted you to know I'm on your side." Aaron was completely out of line. Clara, too. Another message followed from Ben Sarah's cousin, who'd been seated near me that night. "Olive, you dodged a bullet. Clara's bad news. She had a boyfriend in Chicago this whole time. Aaron's just her latest toy. He'll figure that out soon enough." I stared at the texts for a moment, then deleted them. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. Their pity, their anger at him, it wasn't mine to carry. Their drama belonged to them. Still, the updates trickled in. Clara's betrayal was swift. By the time Aaron tried to follow her after the wedding, she'd already flown back to her real life. Rumor had it she never even answered his calls. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who told me to be more fun, more like her, was discarded like an old coat the moment her plane touched down. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Because karma had done exactly what it always does, shown up without an invitation. Of course, Aaron tried to control the story. He painted himself as the wronged one, whispering to mutual friends that I had overreacted, that I'd been looking for an excuse. But the problem with lies is that they collapse under their own weight. People had seen him on that dance floor. They'd watched Clara's hand linger on his chest. They'd heard the laughter, the whispers. And worse for him, they'd seen my face, the kind of quiet devastation you can't fake. Soon enough, the sympathy shifted. Not toward Aaron, but away from him. Friends stopped answering his calls. Invites dried up. Even Sarah told me quietly. People are distancing themselves from him. What he did, at my wedding of all places, they're done. I didn't ask for updates, but they came anyway. It was as if the world wanted to make sure I knew he was paying the price. One night, I stood in the kitchen making tea when my phone buzzed with a group message. Someone had sent a photo, Aaron slumped at a bar, alone, his tie undone, nursing a drink like it was the last thing tethering him to the earth. There was a caption beneath it, "Guess Clara really did a number on him." I set the phone down untouched and let the kettle whistle. This wasn't jealousy, this wasn't revenge. It was distance. For the first time in years, his chaos wasn't mine to manage. His downfall wasn't mine to fix. And the peace that came with that realization was more intoxicating than any victory. But in the back of my mind, a quiet certainty lingered. Aaron wasn't finished. He'd come back. Not because he loved me, but because people like him always need someone to blame, someone to pull back into their storm. And when that moment came, I would be ready. The first attempt came exactly 2 weeks after I told Aaron to leave. A text lit up my phone while I was chopping vegetables for dinner. Unbelievable. You've turned everyone against me. Do you know what people are saying? We need to talk. Now. I let the screen dim until it went black. Then I slid the knife through the carrots again, slow, steady. The sauce on the stove bubbled gently, as if reminding me that this was my life now. Quiet. Controlled. I didn't reply. The second attempt was messier. It came in the form of a voicemail at 1:17 a.m. His voice slurred thick with alcohol and regret. Olive, please pick up. Please. Clara, she played me. She had someone else the whole time. I was stupid. I see it now. Everyone hates me. Sarah won't even answer my calls. I lost everything. I lost you. Just call me back, please. The words trembled, punctuated by a shaky breath, then a muffled sob. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, listening in the dark. When it ended, I saved the voicemail. Not out of sentiment, but as proof. A receipt for a lesson I would never need to relearn. Then I deleted it. After that, the attempts grew more desperate. A string of messages over the following weeks. You can't just erase me, Olive. You're cruel. I can't believe you do this after everything I gave you. I need to see you. Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I read them once, then placed the phone face down. The silence in my kitchen filled with the sound of boiling pasta water. It was almost cinematic the way his chaos clashed against my calm. His storm pounding at the edges of a house he no longer belonged to while I sat inside, untouched, stirring sauce. But there was a shift in his tone as weeks passed. The anger faded. The blame softened into pleading. And underneath it all, I could hear the same thing I had seen in his eyes the night I told him to leave fear. Fear of being left behind. Fear of being ordinary without someone to orbit him. Fear of silence. One evening, Sarah called to check on me. He's been trying to drag people back into his corner, she said softly. It's not working. Everyone sees him for what he is now. Olive, you don't owe him a single second of your peace. I know, I said, and I did. But even knowing that I couldn't shake the sense that this wasn't over. Aaron wouldn't settle for texts and voicemails forever. He'd show up. And when he did, I wondered if I would still feel this calm, or if the storm he carried would try to pull me back in. It happened on a Saturday morning, crisp and clear. I had just finished a workout at the gym, endorphins buzzing through my veins, a towel slung around my neck. I was unlocking my car when I heard the hurried click of shoes on asphalt. Olive. The voice froze me before I even turned. He was thinner, unshaven, his eyes ringed with shadows. Aaron. His once polished confidence was gone, replaced with a jittery desperation that made him almost unrecognizable. Please, he panted, stopping a few feet away. Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I didn't move. I let him feel the distance between us. He dragged a hand through his messy hair. I lost everything. Clara used me. She had someone else the whole time. I was stupid. God, Olive, I know that now. I ruined us. I ruined you. But I can fix this. I can be better. Just give me one more chance. His voice cracked on the last word, and for the first time I saw not arrogance, not anger, but emptiness. I exhaled slowly, adjusting the towel around my neck. That night I said evenly, you told me I should be more like her. He blinked confused. What? I met his eyes steady and unflinching, so I listened. I became someone who doesn't get threatened, who doesn't get pathetic, who doesn't look back. The words hit him harder than any scream could have. His mouth opened, then closed, like he was searching for a script that no longer existed. Olive, he whispered, his face crumpling. Please don't do this. You know me. You know us. No, I said softly. I finally know myself. His jaw clenched, desperation curdling into fury. You're heartless, he spat. A cold, heartless bitch. I nodded once, unshaken. I know. I opened my car door and slid inside. The engine hummed to life. Through the glass, I watched him stand there, trembling fists balled at his sides, unable to move or speak. Then I shifted into gear and pulled away, leaving him in the middle of that empty parking lot alone with the silence he had always feared. For the first time, it wasn't my silence to break. It was his. The weeks that followed felt like breathing fresh air after years in a sealed room. I hiked trails outside the city, feeling my lungs burn with something pure instead of the suffocating weight of arguments. I bought books I'd always meant to read and stacked them on a new bookshelf I built myself. The house once cluttered with his noise filled with my own rhythms, quiet, deliberate mine. People still reached out, trickling updates about Aaron. Sarah texted me one afternoon. He's burning bridges left and right. Honestly, all of people have washed their hands of him. Another friend sent a whispered rumor Clara never spoke to him again after the wedding. He had tried, of course, but she dismissed him the way you swat a fly from your arm. I read the messages, nodded, and deleted them. Their outrage, their gossip, it wasn't my story anymore. Months later, Sarah invited me for coffee. The cafe was warm and airy, the clink of cups and hum of conversation like a gentle soundtrack. You look incredible, she said, stirring her latte with a smile. Happier, freer. I am, I admitted. And for once it didn't feel like a performance. Her expression softened, but then shifted as though she had a piece of news she wasn't sure I'd want. I heard from someone, she began carefully. Aaron moved back to his hometown. Couldn't make it work here anymore. I sipped my coffee, the warmth sliding through me. It was like hearing about a stranger, a man I once read about in a novel and then placed back on the shelf. Okay, I said simply. Sarah tilted her head, searching my face for something. Pain, maybe. Satisfaction. Anything. But there was nothing. Just peace. Okay, she echoed, and her smile turned genuine. We spent the rest of the afternoon laughing over honeymoon photos of Greece, whitewashed villages, azure seas, sunsets, spilling fire across the horizon. The past stayed exactly where it belonged in the past. Later that night, I returned to my house, the quiet house, the free house. I set a new plant by the window, boiled water for tea, and sat on the couch with my book. For the first time in years, there was no waiting for a text, no bracing for footsteps at the door, no silence laced with dread. This silence was different.